today our Spider-Man class takes us to a character that a lot of people wanted to see done and a lot of people wanted to know more about, so I'm obliged to teach the class what they want to learn. And today it's all about Toxin. So welcome to Toxin 101. So sit down, relax, and enjoy. As we've done it plenty of times before, our Toxin review will start where all good comic books start, and it's with an origin. And Toxin's origin is covered over 4 issues, a special miniseries that looks called Venom vs. Carnage. In essence, the whole storyline revolves around Carnage being pregnant. So Carnage is pregnant and is going to give birth to a new symbiote. Now, Carnage, being the crazy, demented serial killer that he is, he wants to have the symbiote and kill it, basically. Because he doesn't want this symbiote to later on bond with somebody and basically be a pain in his butt, like Venom is. So Carnage wants nothing to do with the symbiote and he wants it dead. Venom, on the other hand, which is the grandfather of this symbiote that's going to be born, he wants the symbiote to live. And the reason why is he figures that if he can get a young, strong symbiote on his side, he'll be able to use it against Spider-Man. So there'll be 2-on-1. Because Venom and Carnage don't get along at all, as we all know. So what happens in these issues is that Carnage gives birth to the symbiote. When he does, he cannot, he's just way too tired after giving birth that he can't even destroy it. And while giving birth, it caused such a ruckus and a commotion, a big explosion, if you will. The police get involved, and one of the officers, which his name is Pat Mulligan. And it's actually kind of ironic because the writer of this story is Peter Mulligan, so obviously it's a play on his name. So Pat Mulligan discovers Carnage, and Carnage basically sets the symbiote behind his neck. Now, the baby symbiote. Now, the way it works with these kinds of symbiotes and with the Carnage symbiote is the symbiote bonds with you from the inside. So for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure how this would work, because we all know that you kind of feel the suit on you, feel the symbiote. But this symbiote, for whatever reason, gets on him and is undetectable. It merges inside of him, and that's it. He doesn't know it's there, basically. So this symbiote that's inside of him is there. Carnage gets away, or goes away for a while, and then he decides, I'll come back when I'm, when I'm feeling better, not right after birth, and finish off this symbiote later. So during this time, Pat Mulligan, the police officer, he starts to develop certain powers. He's more agile, he's quicker. He notices these things about himself. And what happens with him in this story is that his wife is having birth as well. So his wife has a child, so he's trying to deal with the fact that he has a child, and now he learns through a rendezvous and an altercation with Carnage that he has a symbiote on himself as well, as it exposes himself and then he becomes Toxin for the first time. Toxin was actually given by Venom as a name. Venom called the symbiote Toxin. So Pat Mulligan calls himself Toxin when the symbiote's on him, type thing. The thing that's interesting is it's the first time we see a individual that's good with this symbiote in a long time. I mean, Venom was always the anti-hero, but he wasn't exactly the perfect anti-hero. But what we get to see here is we get to see somebody other than Peter Parker have a symbiote on him who's actually good. This is like the straight down the line type police officer that doesn't do anything wrong type thing. So, uncorrupt, if you will. So what he's doing is he's learning to get with the symbiote and actually learning to try to control the symbiote and try to make it do good. So the symbiote's kind of like a kid, if you will, and he's trying to nurture it and teach it the right ways. Now, something that happens within the storyline here is that Black Cat gets involved in the storyline. Spider-Man gets involved in the storyline. Spider-Man is very minimal in the storyline. Appears here and there, checks up on Mulligan, knows he has a symbiote in him, basically makes sure that he's doing the right thing. Black Cat is more involved because she fights against Carnage and all that to try to save, Toxin before he actually becomes Toxin for the first time. So Black Cat's getting him out of trouble, if you will, with Carnage. But what happens later on in the series? So this basically is the first appearance of Pat Mulligan, the first appearance of this baby symbiote. And in issue 2, we actually see Officer Pat Mulligan for the first time become Toxin, as the symbiote flows all over him and he becomes Toxin right at the end. In issue 3, he's kind of learning to deal with the powers of being Toxin, and which is kind of a funny scene that happens is there's a bank robbery, and he goes and basically stops all the robbers. But when he goes to stop him, although the symbiote wants to kill the robbers because that's its nature, Pat Mulligan says, no, we're not going to kill them. We're just going to arrest them. So basically he's willing the symbiote into doing good. And when Venom sees this, Venom absolutely freaks out. Because Venom does not want a good symbiote. Venom wanted somebody to side with. He did not want a symbiote that could later on come and bite him on the ass, if you will. So what happens is that Venom actually has a temporary truce with Carnage, joins Carnage in order to try to kill the symbiote. And this is where Spider-Man gets involved to help Toxin out. So, we're brought to the last issue, this is issue 4, and in this issue, at the end of it, Pat Mulligan decides to leave his wife, leave his baby, leave everything behind, leave the Force and everything, because he doesn't really know how to deal with this monster, as he calls it, that's inside of him. So we see him leave that family life in order to try to get his own head straight and try to learn how to deal with the symbiote, because he doesn't necessarily trust the symbiote because it's known to evil to be around his newborn baby and all that. So he's just trying to learn how to control it and walks away from his family and all that. And kind of a sad little story, if you will. So after this, we get a Toxin miniseries, which was 6 issues in length. This miniseries basically deals with the whole aftermath of this. Toxin is alone now, he's trying to fight crime, and it's kind of weird because there's a lot of interaction between the symbiote and the host. Because what happens is the symbiote tells Pat, like, hey man, let's go out, let's go do stuff. And then Pat's like, no, we gotta stay here, I don't want to go out. And he's like, come on, let's go out. It's kind of weird because they talk back and forth. And one of them is like the straight arrow, one of them is the kind of like, do what you want to do, do what's fun, do anything you want to do type thing, no worries. So it's kind of interesting to see the way they interact one with each other. They do take care of 2 low-key villains in this series. So, and Spider-Man is always chaperoning over them, kind of, to make sure that everything is going alright. Some key factors is a lot of fans dismiss it because of a continuity error. And the error is that Black Cat, in this series, claims that she's never seen or heard of Carnage. She calls him the monster, that thing, and she has no idea who he is. Yet we all know that Black Cat faced Carnage on several occasions in the Maximum Carnage storyline in 1993. Now, this series came out in 2004 or 2005. I don't really remember offhand. But people are trying to say, no, well, maybe this happened before Maximum Carnage. And it's not really possible. Because if you look at some of the telltale signs in these books, you'll see that it takes place in about the year 2004-2005, in present day. Because they refer to the big explosion when Carnage gives birth. One of the people there says, oh my god, was that Al-Qaeda? And Al-Qaeda was definitely a saying or word that was on nobody's tongue in 1993. Because overall, a not bad character. Marvel has been milking the symbiotes for a long time, but I think this is actually the first time that they took an offspring after Carnage and actually did something with it, or tried to do something with it. So there might be some interesting stories down the line for this guy. Who knows? So, anyways, I hope you enjoy the review. Thanks for watching, and join me next time. Later, guys.